Hello and welcome back to Women Who Lead. And oh my God, this month we celebrate Pride Month, Juneteenth, and National Homeownership Month, which is very special for all of us in on the screen. I'm excited that we today have a chance to hear from three dynamic women who are breaking down barriers and walls, creating homeownership opportunities for all, and who are passionate about making a difference in order to positively transform our industry. I'm your host, Teresa Palacios Smith, and I'm Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for HomeServices of America and HSF affiliates. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you for joining us. Those who follow the show know that this series is a passion for me because I'm able to get together leaders, amazing leaders, while having un cafecito, right? And that's a Colombian Latino trait, so that we can learn about their path and take away all about how they became influential leaders of today. So our guest today, I'm calling the Transformers. Let me introduce you to them. Michelle Isabel. So Michelle is an associate broker at Reese Nichols. And Michelle, I love the yellow on you. It's a beautiful color, which is one of the largest real estate companies in Missouri and Kansas, with over 50 offices and 2,700 realtors across both states. She has 5 years of experience and holds an MBA in business administration, specializing in management, which she actually attained. I was so impressed when I was reading her bio, as a stay-at-home mother with 3 young children. Michelle is an active member of the LGBT community in Kansas City and a member ambassador also of the LGBT Chamber of Commerce. She is passionate about training and last year founded a group within Reese Nichols to help bring education both internally and externally about the LGBT plus community. She and her team also provide home buyer workshops and education to the community in order to help achieve all homeownership opportunities to all. And I love that, Michelle. And she and I met about 6 months ago. And from that moment on, I was so impressed. I knew I had to have her on the show. Belinda Hernandez. Belinda is a realtor also with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Georgia Properties. And all of you know out there, that's my home. That's where I started, which is one of the largest and most successful real estate organizations in Georgia, with over 1,550 associates and 23 local offices. It might be 24 now with your Clayton office. So Belinda is a founding member of the new BHHS Forever Pride Network, a worldwide group of LGBTQ plus and allied affiliates, staff, and leadership. The group's mission is focused on strengthening culture through diversity and inclusion. And prior to joining BHHS, Belinda and I were just talking about, she actually was in broadcasting and digital media, including with CNN. She served as co-chair at Turner Broadcasting's LGBTQ plus business resource group. In addition, she was vice president and board member of NLGIA, the National Association of LGBTQ plus journalists, and is currently on the board of Atlanta's Out on Film Festival, which, according to Belinda, is the oldest and best in the country, right?
It's
Lori Pace. I love it. I love it. Lori is a realtor at Kentwood Real Estate and inclusion consulting strategist as well. And Kentwood is the leading luxury brokerage servicing the Denver metro and northern Colorado area, and is headed by Gretchen Rosenberg. Lori is a keynote speaker and a trainer on diversity and inclusion in the workplace, and with an emphasis on the real estate industry. And my God, Lori's background is amazing. She's very passionate for real estate, as culminated in serving on many boards, including the board of director of the Denver Metropolitan Association for Realtors and a founding board member of the Community Alliance Committee, which advocates for supporting affiliated multicultural real estate associations. Lori also, I'm so impressed with this, is a TEDx speaker. She's a multicultural strategist and the architect of experimental learning, diversity, training programs. I think we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. She also has a degree in environmental design with a concentration in architecture and urban planning. Well, you can see where that passion comes from. She began her career with the Denver Urban Renewal Authority and has designed community engagement programs for neighborhoods and brokerages to combat the negative impacts of gentrification on urban communities. She's also loves empowering minorities and women, along with helping organizations understand how they can achieve high ROI, which is really important because all of us do that. They achieving high ROI by investing in people and communities and paying it forward. I love that about you, Lori. And the minute I met Lori, that's again a lifelong friend. So welcome all of you. Excited to have you on the show. So let's get started. I really always ask every one of our guests because we are all in real estate. And I know, Lori, you've also got this beautiful, wonderful passion about speaking and training. So how did you get started? I'm going to start with you, Lori. How'd you get started in real estate? And then Belinda, I'll go to you, and then Michelle last.
I got started in real estate almost by accident. When I was in college and I was in the School of Architecture, I had done a thesis where I had to write about an influential architect in the nation. And I wrote about a Black architect who designed Washington, D.C. And my professor told me that I was barking up the wrong tree. And he probably thought at the time that he was helping me by simply saying, you're going to really struggle as a Black woman. Fortunately for me at the time, my dad was an architect, so I had a mentor built in, but had it been somebody else, they might have been discouraged. And so in refusing to change my thesis, because he told me the architect was not an architect, but he was in fact a slave and a tradesman, when in fact he was an astronomist and what have you. And so I refused to change my thesis. So that was the first time that I realized that you can actually push forward to do the right thing. So I had to negotiate with the university after lots of jumps and hoops to take a replacement class, or they would not graduate me from college. And that was my final class for the school. And the class that I was told to take was in the master's program, and it was Real Estate 101. And at the time, I never made the correlation between real estate, architecture, urban planning, community development. And I had a light bulb moment, but I had a lot of guilt about going through all of this school for training as a designer and then deciding to go into real estate, which apparently you only have to be 18. And I knew better. So I decided through credibility that I didn't want to go into real estate. And over time, I realized that real estate developers, buyers, and sellers had the most influence on changing cultures and communities, and started really scratching that itch and realizing that the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, the Obamas, all the people that had this legacy had a tie to real estate, and many of our presidents as well. So in that, I decided to jump in, and it has been wonderful in many ways. And it was holding up the mirror for me as an immigrant as to the challenges. So I originally got into it almost by accident. And I would say now it's divine that it happened that way.
I always think that's divine. It's meant to be. And your story is so beautiful. And the adversity you face and how you met those challenges are really, really inspirational. So thank you, Lori. I'm glad you're in our industry, and you're so right about all of the people that have changed the US have been involved in real estate. Belinda, how about you?
I, as you mentioned, had been in broadcasting my entire 30-year career. The opportunity came along once a bigger company acquired us. I was on the fence. I was offered, the opportunity to leave, and I took that opportunity. The plan was to take a year off, travel, and then see what I want to do next. Lo and behold, COVID hit, so we were in lockdown. That kiboshed the travel plans. And I always wanted to get my real estate license as an investor, not necessarily as a realtor or consumer side. I said, you know what, we're in lockdown. Let me just knock this thing out, get my license. I did. And then one thing led to another. I met up with a friend who is a very successful realtor, talked to the broker. And next thing I knew, I am all in, and it has been so much fun. I feel very blessed. I'm having good success this year. The people side of it, I just love it. The entrepreneurial spirit side of me, I'm literally building a business. It's being my own boss. I just love it. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. Mine was kind of by accident as well. So I did know I didn't want to go back into corporate America just yet, and didn't think that was an option at that point. And then when real estate happened, I jumped in.
And what a beautiful career choice, right, Belinda? Because I can't believe you did it during the time, the time that we were all in lockdown, but what a great time to get started. And with all those connections that you have and that spirit that you already, have in yourself, I think you made the right choice. I know I'm happy that you're with us, and you've really helped me with our LGBTQ Forever Pride Network. So thank you so much for everything you're doing. How about you, Michelle?
Yeah, so I was sitting behind a desk at a corporation, and I had asked to go on a field trip with one of my kids, and I said I could not take off. And I was like, that's the last time I'm going to miss something important for my kids. And I had a friend who had just started in real estate and said, just come on and give it a try. So I took work during the day and took classes at night for a couple months so I could get through that, and then started that fall and just kind of tried to go back to the corporation for a little while. And I was like, nope, I got to do this 100%. So I quit my job and went full-time real estate in January of 2018, and just have kind of kept to it since then. I was on a team for a while and went solo after about 18 months, just figured out, like all of you, that really this is a relationship building process, and just trying to show up and be there for everybody and enjoy that side of the business. So.
Right. And I know Mike Frazier, who's the CEO of that, of Reese Nichols,
Yes.
immediately jumped on you and said, you got to be a trainer. You've got to go into our brokerage. You were just such a mentor and inspiration. So congratulations, Michelle,
Thank
because
you.
I know that you really have done so well and a great asset to our company. So we are celebrating Pride Month and Juneteenth. And I know each of you are involved in different facets within the company and the community. So can you share with us what you're doing to engage our agents and leadership and why that's important? And I'll start with you, Michelle.
Yes, absolutely. So last year, I started a group specifically for LGBT agents within our company that could step forward, who are out with their business, to help provide education and training, not only for our other agents within our company, but also for clientele here in Kansas City. We have a very large LGBT community here, but they're not represented very well whenever it comes to homeowners process. So wanted to make sure that we specifically had agents who were in the community who knew how to ask the right questions and make them feel safe and comfortable in the home buying process, as well as keeping everybody educated on being respectful and all of those things behind the books. So we recently had Reese, I had them sign up for our Mid-America LGBT Chamber of Commerce here. So I'm very excited to join that and be supportive of that company and group, and support other businesses within. And we are working on doing a Pride booth here as well, which is next weekend. I'm so excited about that, to have classes where each agent is going to hold their own buyer class specifically geared towards our LGBTQ community once a month for the next 6 months. So we'll have lots of education and back end for any client who decides they need to do anything in real estate, questions, or just ready to get started. So very excited.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. And I know you're also going to be traveling with most of us to the in September to our LGBTQ plus real estate convention that's going to be taking place in Las Vegas. So
Yeah.
I can't wait. Right. Belinda, how about you?
Yeah, you had mentioned our Forever Pride Network here at Home Services, and at convention back in March, we literally rolled it out. Very successful, had quite a few allies there. We are doing 2 weeks from today, the ABCs of LGBTQ buying and selling with a panel. So looking forward to that. My broker is having a watch party back at the office for that. And I truly appreciate that because Michelle, you had touched a little bit on it for LGBTQ agents. I'm more focused on helping allies navigate this process with LGBTQ clients. And I'm very fortunate that I have a broker, Mary Christ, who's just the best, who is such an ally and wants our fellow agents in the office to use me as a resource. So that's the big thing that we're going to be focusing on 2 weeks from today, that panel discussion. And I'm looking very, very forward to that.
And each state, this is something I learned that I wasn't aware of, is that the Pride events happen from now until November, because depending on weather, a lot of states will hold their events latter part of the third or fourth quarter because of the hot heat summers, that we have in many of the areas of the country. So I think that's fabulous. And not only that, Belinda, you are such an inspiration to me and to so many individuals. We are very involved with the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance. We're a founding partner, and every single, event that we hold, there's so many that we're holding across the country, as you can see right now, that we will be, that are spearheaded, like with people like you and Michelle. So thank you again. And now, Lori, I know that you're also very involved in multicultural and also outreach and training, especially when it comes to minorities and the Black African American community. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So initially, when I started really talking about multiculturalism, was almost by accident, because I didn't want to bring attention to the fact that I was one of few in every environment that I was for real estate when it came to leadership training and or advancement when it came to wealth generation. And so when I started thinking about a platform, working in creating an idea for the TEDx stage, is when I realized that I actually have a story that wasn't a rags to riches story, but it was about being seen. So it started off about talking about women and real estate and our connection from many civilizations in the past. And it started to become very obvious to me that my own ancestry as being a Black woman had a huge tie to real estate, particularly in the United States. So it really created an opportunity for me to understand the history. And from there, that really started to define what I was, who I was in this industry. And I wanted to set myself apart as just being a realtor. I'd been working on community engagement for years, but after a while of doing fundraising, you can only get so far with buying a table, going to a gala. And I recognized that the philanthropic side of it really came through endowments, which oftentimes were fueled by real estate. So I combined the two, thinking about the Black community, about how can we get more people involved in the Black community, who was defined before, are allies that aren't necessarily Black, and recognize that it was a multicultural effort. And particularly after COVID with Juneteenth, is a lot of people were not familiar with Juneteenth. Now, when you look at me, you would assume that I'm African-American, but I'm actually Jamaican. And so I'm married to a man from Mississippi who, as he would claim, is the actual South. And Jamaica, we say, is even more South. But because of his history and the stories that came out of his small town, I started recognizing how all of this is really playing into it. And so when I started talking about my experience is when we started looking at the different boards and how we're looking at diversity and inclusion. So for me, particularly when it comes to Juneteenth, because of what happened during COVID, people started to become aware of it. And the direct correlation of Juneteenth, which was the final Emancipation Proclamation where slaves were considered free. They were free before, but the announcement hadn't made it to Texas. And so now it's being celebrated, and it's now a federal, it's not a federal holiday yet, but in 48 states it's being celebrated. So I'm using June as an opportunity to talk about the direct correlation of slavery in the positive sense of how we help build the country and how multiculturally we have found a way to create real estate, and yet we're not represented as realtors and real estate professionals. So marrying the two, really going back to our roots.
Wow, I love that. And you're so right, and I think, the history of our country and the positive way that you are able to view it and to share your story is something that's very enlightening. And I think that's what I love about you, Lori. And I have to agree with your husband. Mississippi is truly the South. Until you get to Mississippi, right? I'm from Mississippi, so I totally understand that. So, how do you, and we talked a little bit about touching allyship. What does that really mean? And how do we how do people that are perhaps not Latino, not LGBTQ plus, not Black or African American, how do they become allies? And I'll start with you, Lori, and then Belinda, and then Michelle.
There's a couple of different ways, and I'll say specifically to in real estate. So people don't recognize that the subliminal messages or implicit bias that show up. So I was showing properties this past weekend, and the gate code right next to the do not trespassing, I called the agent and the code was 1776. So because I become a historian with real estate, I knew what 1776 meant regarding the Constitution. When we got into the property, I noticed that it was a shrine for the Confederate. And so I had to put my game face on. And so I decided to share with the woman that I was with who had a multicultural family what this meant and how it impacted me. So intentionally, I wanted to recognize the fact that property is so unique to be able to purchase, which we were looking at land, and that how I had a relationship with property going back historically. You know, at one point, slaves were considered property. Quickly in that conversation, in a positive way of spinning it, she became an ally of realizing that she had this privilege of owning property and had a whole new mindset around helping others own property and real estate, and particularly when it came to land. So finding allies sometimes happens when it's there, take advantage of it. And I don't think a lot of real estate professionals realize that that allyship of understanding history and the connection to land can be by having those conversations with your clients. On the flip side to that is making sure that people understand that we all are naturally allies being here in the United States because we're rising together. And when we fall together. And that's what happened during COVID. So the allyship became really obvious in COVID, who was on board and who wasn't. And when we look at the numbers historically and moving forward in 2023 and going on to 2050, that the numbers demographically, there won't be the minority population, which is considered right now Black and brown. But it turns out that as we are all mixed up in a beautiful sense, that we are becoming allies by nature of the demographics of the United States. And so I have been challenging people to look at this as a multicultural solution so that the allyship becomes ingrained in us in the everyday work that we do.
Wow, what a great eye-opening statement. And the fact that you found somebody and were able to, in a positive light, teach them the history without causing any kind of offense, right? This is,
Right.
you know, what it meant to me, and this is why it's important. I think that's beautiful, Lori. Again, so true about minority and being the majority. And I know, Belinda, you're a Latina too, like me, and that will be the dominant minority, a majority in the country in the next coming years. So how do you, being intersectionally, having more than difference within your being a woman, Latina, also LGBTQ plus, how does someone become an ally? What can you recommend?
What I recommend for folks, and again, our office is, I love that we have so many allies, and it comes from the top, from our broker. I open myself to my heterosexual allies to say, you know what, use me as a resource. Let me help you. Because I tell people in the office, if you have not had a queer client, you're gonna have one or two or three or several. And we have to be reflective in the office of the clientele that we serve. So I ask people that are interested in learning more, just come see me, let's have a conversation. And I've had quite a few folks come to me and say, help me with this, or yes, I've had gay couples before. So the biggest thing for me is to really just put myself out there to help people who want to learn and have a better understanding of the gay community. What is some of the terminology? What is, how do, where do gay couples, what do they like to do in their spare time? And I'm like, we're just like you. So we're boring. We lead a boring life. We take out the trash just like you. But seriously, helping them understand some of the nuances of it too. Quite a few people surprised that LGBTQ is not protected as a civil right under civil rights, but because the president, when he first took office, signed an executive order, so we now have fair housing protection. So just helping people understand those little nuances, and that's what I like to do, is just put myself out there for anybody who wants to.
Well, and there are so many states that still do not have the protection, and that's really important to also understand. That's how you can become an ally, by supporting and the opportunities, and also making sure that we all have the right to homeownership and equality. So how about you, Michelle?
I'm the same as Belinda. I'm very open about who I am. I have not been out very long myself, only a few years. And once I did, I came out a blazing. Just wanted to make sure that, people could ask questions, being open and allowing them to ask questions that they think could be offensive to somebody, and just understanding that they're not trying to be offensive. They are taking steps to learn and grow, and having somebody who's open and the ability to answer those questions openly for them is really helpful. And also just showing people locations and places that they can go learn about our history and past, using the Chamber of Commerce especially as a place for people to come and have coffee with chamber members. And again, like Belinda says, and Lori too, that we're all just people, just like everybody else. Being queer doesn't affect how I act professionally, or I'm not going to rub off on you. And just trying to show people that I'm a person, I have a family just like everybody else, and being open and able to answer questions and help them prepare for questions that will come up, especially with our trans friends who have different names, and how to ask that question respectfully, and make sure that each person within the community is respected in their own right. So,
and I think it's so important to understanding the terminology, what if you make a mistake, how do you, because that's what I think a lot of people get nervous about is, oh my God, working with a couple, but I don't know, should I call them a spouse? Should I, what is the appropriate way to address somebody? And, I love it with the ABCs of the LGBTQ plus community that we're actually going to be doing. Belinda, that's a course that's going to be taught in the Resource Center for the BHHS, for the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services agents. You go on Resource Center and you're able to access that course. But this course is also offered by the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance. And Alex Cruz is actually one of our own, and he actually teaches the course. So, we will be teaching it as well to the public, and you can access it. One last thing I want to mention, because I think it's really important, as an ally, our organization has sponsored and partnered with the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance with their homebuyer guide, and they do homebuyer outreach. And this guide is phenomenal for the community because it does provide you with a lot of information about the appropriate questions to ask an agent so that they're not violating fair housing, and also where to go to find people that are allies that can help you in that search. All right. So I really kind of want to pivot into leadership, because I think you all are phenomenal leaders. And I want to learn, because some people look at you and go, oh, wow, how did you get there? It happened overnight. And a lot of it is through hard work and through adversity, right? So tell me, Michelle, was there ever a time that, an impactful moment you reflect that caused you to pivot into an uncomfortable area? Like, I know, and you just told us you came out just recently, right? Very, but now you're reaping the rewards of doing that. So, tell me about your journey.
Yeah. Whenever I came to Reese, it was definitely with Mike Frazier, and my broker for my sales side is Chad Dumas. I sat down with them and had a very honest conversation that there is not a lot of LGBT showing face in our community and our company. And I wanted to make sure that that was an option for me, in coming to Reese, that was something I could spearhead. And Mike was 100% behind me, and still is to this day. So it's great having leadership above me who's also supportive of moving forward in that. And making sure that pivot has been a big thing, because I've met so many other great agents who, through seeing how being out and open in my business has helped my business. I do service both sides of our community as LGBT, but also hetero couples fairly and equally. But I do predominantly work more with the LGBT community because I am so open and out about helping them and making sure they're educated. So helping other agents see how being out and open and my authentic self has helped my business grow, not only personally, but professionally. By gaining new friends and things has been amazing. And it's been great to meet other agents within my community and our company that are in the community as well, that are excited to be able to be out themselves a little bit more than they have been in the past.
Because that was such a taboo many years ago. I remember when I first got in the real estate industry, one of my very best friends was gay, but he didn't tell anybody. He was so worried about, coming out and telling people. And I'm like, why? And he goes, you don't realize the scrutiny that we become under. And it's a very frightening thing. And I know that coming out is something, Belinda, that Alex even talks about. It happens every day. So, tell me a little bit about that. Also, your pivoting to something that made you,
Sure.
Uncomfortable, that you now realize, wow.
Coming out does happen every day.
Mhm.
But even as an agent, when I meet a prospect for the first time, I'm treading a little lightly, because what if they don't like queer people? I certainly don't hide the fact that I'm gay, but I don't, I'm not out there flaunting it. Like, I'm just me. I'm just Belinda. So yes, you have to always be on guard to kind of feel out the situation if it is a safe space for you to be yourself. I worked just recently with another agent in our office who is an ally. We worked with a young man and found him a home, got him closed, took him to lunch, and he's openly gay, and he just opened up about working for, I'll give you an example though, working for a very conservative contractor, military contractor, and he could not bring his whole self to work. He had to self-edit. What did you do on the weekends? He had to put himself in a box every day. Now, fast forward, he's moving to Atlanta, works for a big tech company where he can be himself. So I tell you that story to tell you that as a queer person, you do have to sometimes self-edit. You can't quite be open for fear of possible retribution. So yeah, you're always looking at that. But a point where I pivoted, I'm going to bring it back to the female women in leadership. When I was 50, I decided I wanted to go back to school and get my MBA, Michelle. So I did mine as well while working full time. Talk about insane. But the ratio of men to women, I believe it was 7-3. So we were mostly, the women were clearly outnumbered. And you're with all these high performing people. And it was one of the hardest and scariest things that I ever did, but I don't know why I decided to do it. I knew I always wanted to get another degree, but I did it, and it was frightful for a while. And lo and behold, as the time went on, you prove yourself as a leader, not necessarily as a woman. You just happen to be a woman, and you gain the respect of the folks. I ended up graduating top of the class with the 4.0 in a class of mostly men. So that was a very uncomfortable, scary time, but the payoff was very big for me. So, and I had a lot of support too. So that was
congratulations.
A very uncomfortable moment. That was uncomfortable for me, but it ended up working out in the end.
Oh, that's very impressive. And wow, 4.0, amazing. Lori, how about you?
Well, I came out the womb this color. And I was extremely proud of it. So I've been coming out for a while, but what a lot of people don't realize, that as a Black woman profession, sometimes you have to code switch to a fault where you can't be authentically who you are by representing your culture. So you play small based on your heritage. And in my sense, as an immigrant, it started off with my accent. So I try to get rid of it, got rid of it, and realized that I'd lost a part of me once I lost my accent. Then I started to try to not bring attention to the fact that I was Black. And so I didn't fit in the bucket of being Black enough or white enough or being overly professional or too proper. And so particularly in the real estate industry, I always showed up in a very proper sense because I wanted to make sure that I was credible. But at some point for me, what changed was really during COVID, when I recognized that after the killing of George Floyd, that it impacted so many people, even in our household, being with a Black man who met the exact same description of a very tall Black man, and myself not understanding how that impacted our children. But I realized that I could no longer pretend that this didn't impact me and that I couldn't just pretend that everything was okay. So for me, where leadership happened was twofold. I was hired over 10 years ago from a woman who just took a chance with me at a luxury firm at the time, who happens to still be the woman who's been my opening door person, because she is now a CEO at Kentwood. And there are not many women CEOs in our industry. So me feeling comfortable and having a safe environment to lead showed up during COVID, when I had the ability to use, like we're doing here, Zoom and other platforms, to talk about my experiences and using it as a way to grow my network and to encourage other people to grow their network. So the leadership part happened all along outside of this industry. I was serving on lots of boards and I was doing all sorts of things to prove myself as a business person. But once I realized that I could actually celebrate being a Black woman and create safe spaces for other brokerages to do the same thing, it changed, again, like you said, Michelle, it changed my business, because I started attracting a whole different mindset of people, and my clients were now supporting my efforts. And I was never one for asking for referrals, and I never sent out a just listed. But once they realized that this was more than just my passion, being a Black woman was who I was, they supported my efforts and they started referring me business, because they wanted to come alongside with the mission that I had created, was to celebrate being a Black woman as an entrepreneur. So the leadership part was having someone who, and I always ask Gretchen, why did you hire me? Part of it is what we always do here, is that intuition. She had no idea if I was going to be successful or not. And after all these years, we are still working on creating more diversity there. But the leadership came because another woman said she would take the time to lead. And it was more of leading by example and finding those mentors in the industry. So being a Black woman now, I say it all the time, to the point that people joke about it, because my friends are saying, well, you've been Black all along, why now? And because I want to recognize that it's something that I'm proud of and not something that I'm going to sit back and not be excited about. So I self-proclaimed myself the eager Black woman, because I didn't want to be confused with the angry Black woman. And ever since then, it's just been a joy. And my business has quadrupled in a different way, working in community service areas. So now I have nonprofit organizations that are looking to help with home ownership as opposed to the one-offs. So my business platform changed, my mindset changed, and that leadership, while it was natural before, I had to suppress it. And like everyone's saying here, when you get the chance to really be authentic and show up in your business, the rest comes.
Oh gosh, I could not agree with you more. What a motivational, just view of what you just told us. Beautiful, beautiful, Lori. One thing, because all of you obviously have made such an impact in our industry, in real estate, you really are transforming, because you now become your genuine selves. You're able to say, this is who I am, and I want to be myself, and I want to represent others who really don't have, or maybe they don't think they have representation, right? One thing for those young women out there, or young men who really want to follow in your path, what advice would you give them? I'll start with you, Belinda.
That is a great question, Teresa. The advice I would give them is to be unapologetically you. That's it. We're taught, especially as women, culturally, I'm talking overall culturally in American society, we each have our individual cultures, but American society, we're taught to, play it small, play quiet, the whole MBA thing. It was interesting to see some of the male reaction when, the females took the lead, et cetera. But I would tell young people to be unapologetically you. You may get some scars along the way, but in the end, you're going to be able to be happier with yourself. And when you're genuinely yourself, people just gravitate towards you. There's a sincerity that comes across when you're genuinely yourself. And applying that to business, I think that's a no-brainer, to be unapologetically yourself.
Gosh, that's so beautiful. And I'm tearing up because of all that I'm hearing. You guys have touched me so much. How about you, Michelle?
I think my advice would be to not settle, that you're always going to be enough. You have the ability to step up and make a change in your life. 5 years ago, I would never imagine I'm where I'm at today. I own my own home with my wife. We have a great family. We are successful in life. 5 years ago, I was depressed every day. And, it's just so different. And you have the ability to make that change in your life. And if you don't believe in you, find somebody who does, because there are other people in your life who believe in you. And you are the person that is surrounded by the 5 people around you. So if you're not happy where you are, find other people that are where you want to be and start hanging out with them. Take them out to lunch or coffee or whatever it takes. But you have the ability to change and pivot your life.
Yes. Oh, so true. And I know you read The 5-Minute Rule by Mel Robbins. I love that book.
Yes.
And that was one for me too, that really changed. I don't know, just something about her and that book at the time really also impacted me. Lori, how about you?
Well, it seems obvious here is really collaboration. I learned that if I wanted to get to the next level, I needed to find people that were already there, and especially those people that were so many more steps ahead of me, so that I could literally put myself in a position to succeed. And so the collaboration of working with others, when I woke up and decided I'm going to change the whole industry of real estate and it's going to be more diverse, I thought I would just tell people about it and just keep telling them about it and it would happen naturally. And I realized that I had to design something that made sense. But I was introduced to Teresa, who was doing something on a whole nother level. And I realized the power of collaboration. And as we started talking about ideas, and then I met Gino, who was all in and was, let's go. And who else would you want to partner with an organization that is not just in one industry, but several industries, recognizing that partnership, that collaboration is true leadership. And really, like you said, forcing the hand to have mentors. Every mentor that I have, I asked for them to be my mentor. They did not seek me. So when you're younger, you wait and hope that somebody will help you, as we did when we were child ages and we had our teachers. But every single mentor that I've had in my life for the longevity has been someone that I've asked for help. When it came to real estate, I said to Gretchen, I don't want to moonlight. I want to celebrate diversity and real estate. So I don't want to call it a side hustle. I want to work on leadership training for this industry for people of color. And she started making calls and making sure that happened. And she introduced me to Teresa. So through these collaborations is how I know leadership happens, because if it's something I don't know, then I ask somebody who does, and then we start working together, and then you can't stop us at that point. So I say, without a doubt, it's collaboration.
Oh, what a great thing, right? First of all, thank you, Lori. That just touches my heart. And I have to agree with you with Gino Bafari, by the way, who hired me and didn't even have a position that was in the books in our organization. He created it for me specifically and for our organization to have somebody that would lead diversity, equity, and inclusion. And to this day, I cannot be more appreciative for that.
And lead by example, because I would say there's a lot of diversity directors who just do it because of their HR experience or because they've checked a box or they've been certified. But you have been leading by example and by proving to people that even when people don't want to hear about it, you're still moving forward. And I think it makes it more meaningful to people when they actually see it happening and you're not just talking about it, but you're being about it. And I think that's what makes this collaboration so unique, is that you're actually doing the work.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that. You want to continue on? No, I'm just saying.
And I go on and on and on.
I'm just teasing. So tell me something about what have you considered your greatest accomplishment? And I can't believe it, but we're almost running out of time. I love this. But Belinda, what would you consider your greatest accomplishment so far?
Wow. That's a tough one. I would say my greatest accomplishment professionally,
Yes.
was leading a team through Hurricane Katrina when I worked in local news. It destroyed my city, my hometown. Leading a team through that event when lives were lost, your city is destroyed. People literally left their homes with their clothes on their back. Helping to be part of the leadership that got our team through that while covering the biggest story of my career. That to me stands out, and it forever will stand out for me, is having to compartmentalize and put on hold your feelings and your tears and the sadness and the hurt while you're focusing on putting the information out there for people to get to safety, et cetera. So I still get teared up about it. Very blessed that, my family.
It was a devastating. We had so many people relocate to the Atlanta area from Katrina. They lost everything, and people don't realize the devastation. And you're right, trying to put your feelings aside, report the news, help people, so that they could recover, while all along knowing that your heart is broken for what you see, and being that New Orleans is your home. You are definitely a Saints girl, and we talk about it all the time.
Yeah. So that was the I think my biggest accomplishment on the professional side.
Oh, absolutely. Beautiful. I love it. How about you, Michelle?
I'd say currently my biggest thing is getting co-broker, achieving this goal. I had kind of, a few years ago, I wasn't really sure this was the route I wanted to go. And even sitting in this chair, it feels very enlightening every day. I learned something new. But I'd say, going out of my comfort zone to put myself in a role of leadership where other people can come to me, but also I can help other people with their business and grow and show them that there's tons of options for them. So I'd say as of right now, this is where I'm at. So
I love it. What beautiful, beautiful. Lori?
Mine's a little emotional because I've been changing it literally as you're speaking. And I would say for me, I lost my mom last year. And I think when she passed the torch for legacy was my greatest accomplishment. When I realized that the work that I'm doing was because she came to the United States with my dad for the American dream. And the American dream for many people is home ownership. So the fact that I get to do this now, and, in our industry, a lot of people pay for awards. A lot, and they love the accolades, and they love to talk about the top production. For me, that was never a goal, and that drove my brokerage crazy because I didn't care about top production. But when I started to see success and I got acknowledged by an award that's not based on production at all, but it was award, and similar to what you were saying, Teresa, was they made it up. It was diversity, equity, inclusion for the Colorado Association in the building where 100 years ago I was not allowed to be there, in a situation where it was illegal to practice real estate. It was illegal for a woman to own real estate. It was illegal for a slave to own real estate, and to be acknowledged for diversity, equity, and inclusion when literally all I was doing was poking the bear 2 years ago and saying that I'm going to change the industry. That has been my greatest accomplishment, to know that when my mom passed on the torch, she had no idea that I would do it through real estate, and neither did I. And that has been by far the greatest accomplishment for me.
Oh, Lori, and your parents are originally from Jamaica?
Yes.
And so it's really important, as immigrants, I'm an immigrant too. My father was an immigrant, to know that is homeownership to this day for all of us. It's still a dream. And you've inspired all of us, right, with your story. And I think your mother is definitely looking down on you today and saying, I'm so proud of you, Lori, for all that you're doing. And, the inspiration you are to your own family and kids and all the others as well. Right. As we wrap up, I do want two things I always ask is, what are your favorite books that you like to pass? Because we have a lot of people that love to read. And so recommend a book or two that that you feel has really helped you. And also whether it's, if it's on podcast. I'm not a big reader, but I love Audible. So Glenda, I'll start with you.
Sure. Too many to name, but one that I've read since college, and I read it just about every year, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Just a phenomenal book. Pick it up. But this is one that's not too old, that it's been a minute since I've read it. Glennon Doyle's Untamed.
Yes.
It's for all of us women, or all of our allied guys out there, anybody who's got children, grandchildren, aunts, grandmothers. This book basically tells you to just be who you are. We're all a cheetah. She weaves the whole cheetah theme through there. We are all God darn cheaters. I'll use those words instead of the words that she uses. It's a good read. It's been about a year since I've read it, so I think I'm going to read this one again.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm not familiar with it.
That's
so
amazing.
It's one of my to-do book reads. How about you, Michelle?
5 Second Rule by Mel Robbins was a huge game changer for me. That was the book that I finished and picked up real estate classes that night. So it's been a big change. And then Ryan Serhant's Sell It Like Serhant book is amazing. And I love it on Audible because you get his personality and he's hilarious and motivating and all of the things. And he's really like, just do it, which is what I need most days, to just get up and do the job, and it'll reap rewards for you. So that one I would suggest 100% listen on Audible all day, every day. So you get his personality.
And great. And they're also on YouTube. So if you want to watch, Mel is definitely, you can follow her on YouTube. She talks about the books, and again, the Audible, I have it too, as well as Ryan Serhant. He is hilarious. How about you, Lori?
So mine has been Think and Grow Rich since I was in high school. And for the last many years, I'm in a mastermind group where twice a year we go through the principles of it and we apply it to our lives and our business. And so I used it when I was making that shift. And when you're listening to the Audible, it's hard because there's reference to men all the time. And then when you look at the principles behind it, we all know behind every great man is a woman. And it's clear that we were part of that foundation. And so that has always been my favorite. But then most recently as this week, my favorite has become a book that I'm going to mention everybody get, which is it's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for Dummies. And the reason being is that no one had really created a textbook for how to get leaders to understand diversity, equity, inclusion. So just this week, I have partnered with the author of this book, who's both on the HR side and everything else, to figure out how do we do this not only in real estate, but use this as a sounding board. So now, instead of just talking a good game, we have a text to go with it. And so it just really, for me, figuring out how to create curriculum was the challenge in all of this, and making sure this made sense. But to be able to partner with someone that can really take this dream to the next level is amazing. So that is, for my own biases, my most favorite, because I am partnering with them to help see how can we really make this happen, particularly in the real estate industry.
What a great idea and book and knowledge. I love that. That's fantastic. All right. Last thing, tell me your inspirational quote, or, something that somebody always told you, or your parents. What, Belinda, I'll start with you, Michelle, and then I'll end with Lori.
Yes. Okay. I'll tell you what my mom and dad, my daddy's no longer with us. He taught me what teamwork really is. And he always used to tell me when I was a little kid, do the right thing. Just always do the right thing. And my sweet mom, who's 88, to this day says, you can do anything you put your mind to. And wow. Just that simple. So my mom and dad. And I have a quote, if you allow me, real quick.
Sure.
I was thinking of quotes for today. Mia Hamm, the former Olympic soccer star, superstar.
Yes.
Her coach one day said to her, gee, you run like a girl. And she said, well, if you could run a little faster, you could too.
Yes. I love it.
Oh my God. I love that. That's great. And of course, I'm a soccer fanatic, Colombian. And so Mia Hamm, certainly, I love that quote, and I hadn't heard it. It's a great quote. Thanks, Belinda, for sharing about your parents as well. Michelle, how about you?
So I had to pull it off my computer because I always have it with me. So this is from Mel Robbins' new book, The High Five Rule. I've read this quote every morning for like the last 3 months that the book's been out, but it's, if all you ever do is think about what you want, it's not a dream, it's a wish. A dream requires action. It demands partnership. It only becomes real when you find the courage to step towards it. And, some days it's just hard to get out of bed. And some days it's hard to do the thing that you need to do in order to take that next step towards the next thing that would be good. So I've really used this to kind of shift my focus on things that I've been wishing for and actually making them a reality for myself and my family.
Oh, what a great quote. I like it a lot. I'm going to have to pull that one up for sure. Lori, how about you?
So I'm going to paraphrase Maya Angelou. My short version of a Jamaican quote is no problem on. That's how we do everything. That's how we go about in life. But Maya Angelou has always inspired me. And I'm paraphrasing the quote that people will always forget what you say, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And so that has inspired me on days when people say things, and like you said, they might slip up and say the wrong thing that might be offensive, but when you have a conversation and find a common way to talk about it and how you make them feel, even when they're wrong, then you both can feel a lot better about it. So it's definitely, people remember how you make them feel.
Oh, and it is one of my favorite quotes as well. She's such an inspiration to so many of us.
Yes.
And so thank you all for sharing such great insights and telling us about your stories and also the work that you're doing. It was so inspiring. As you could tell, I teared up more than once on the show. My key takeaways, obviously, is one that I think is really important is bring your genuine self.
Yes.
Be yourself, because that the rest will follow. Business will follow. And it's hard to hide who you are. It's just no fun. And so I think that is one of the very best takeaways for me. And I think it's going to be really resonating with our audience as well. I found this great quote that I thought was so perfect describing all of you. Never underestimate the valuable and important difference you make in every life you touch. You touch mine today.
Yeah.
For the impact you make today has a powerful ripping effect on every tomorrow. Really does. Thank you so much for joining us. You can catch our newest podcast episode, which you can watch on Women Who Lead series podcast, easy to remember. So Women Who Lead podcast. And it's going to be on impact leaders and making an impact. It's an amazing podcast. This will also be transitioned into a podcast. So you'll have a chance to join us at the end of the month when we will air it as well. If you didn't get a chance or want to hear it on your radios or on your way to work as you sell real estate. And our next show will air for this series on June 29th. And we're going to have the motivators that will be featured. We got some great women that are doing some phenomenal work and are motivating so many people in this industry. So as we say goodbye, remember my favorite quote, and that is, remember always bring other women up the ladder with you as you climb to the top. See you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.